So welcome everyone. My name is Billy Heelan. I'm the president of Rio Rancho School Employees Union. And today we're hosting a forum with our endorsed candidates for the Rio Rancho School Board, Rio Rancho Public Schools School Board. So we have with us today Gary Tripp. He's running in School Board District 1, and Jessica Tyler is running in School Board District 5. So what we're going to do is we're going to hear from each of them for a couple of minutes about the reasons that they're running for the school board and their vision for Rio Rancho Public Schools. And then we'll open the floor to questions. And I may, from time to time, if new people join us, you're welcome to put questions in the chat. You're also welcome to call me or text me with your question if you'd rather remain anonymous. My phone number is 505-504-3437. I will also put that in the chat in case you need it. And so let's start. We'll start with Jessica. So Jessica Tyler, again, running for school board in District 5. Please introduce yourself and tell us about you.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, as Billy stated, my name's Jessica Tyler, and I am running for school board in District 5. I moved to Rio Rancho about 18 years ago, recently retired from a career in law enforcement. So come from a family and a career of public service, which is extremely important to my family. The reason we moved to Rio Rancho, one of the top two reasons that we moved to Rio Rancho when we did 18 years ago, was because of the strong school district that we have here in Rio Rancho. At the time when my husband and I got married and moved here, we had a 10-year-old who was getting ready to start middle school, and she attended Mountain View, and she had a great experience there. I currently have two kiddos at Cleveland High School, and we just love this community. And I felt like I'm at a point now in my life where I have a little bit more time to be able to give back and continue serving in our community. And I figured this is a good way for us to, for me to give back. Like I said, I've reaped the benefits of the strong school district for the last 18 years. And now I can try to be more participatory in that process and support our district. It's something that, like I said, is extremely important, and one of the reasons we moved here to Rio Rancho. So overall, that's why I'm running in or for the school board, and I look forward to serving, the teachers, the students, all the staff. Some of my priorities will be to try to help fill empty positions. I know staffing is something that every industry is hurting from, but especially in our educational system. And it's all positions, not just teachers, but our EAs, our custodians, and that's really affecting our schools. And so that'll be one of my first priorities, just to see what we can do as a school board to help address that. Again, coming from a law enforcement background, I spent the majority of the last part of my career, the last 10 years, 11 years, in supervisory and then management positions or administrative positions. So I have a lot of experience in developing public policy, experience with budgets, and just problem solving in general. And because I had worked at those higher levels, I think I have, and in that type of service, I have a very big picture viewpoint. And I think that will be helpful for me to bring to the school board. And so I like to challenge people to think outside of the box. I like to challenge people to think of ideas that maybe go against what our gut belief or maybe our reaction might be with things. And so I definitely don't pretend to know it all, but I will be a good learner, and I hope a good servant for our community on the school board. My type of approach to things is to have direct communication. So I invite people to definitely inform me. I'm running unopposed, so you're stuck with me, but so I invite people to, communicate to me, because just because of my own experiences, that doesn't mean that I'm going to be as well informed as I would like to be. So that comes where the community plays the part of making sure that they communicate to the school board what their concerns are, what their needs are, and what direction they want to see things go. And so the one thing I can promise to do is to keep an open mind and approach things, like I said, from a big picture perspective, and try to make the best decisions I can for our community. And so that's what I hope to do on the school board. I don't want to talk too much. I want to keep it brief. So I'll take questions, or if people have them later, make sure just to, like I said, reach out to us. And I look forward to serving you guys. I'm actually sitting in a classroom right now in Cleveland High School because my daughter just finished playing a volleyball game, and we're staying to support the team. So we've spent a lot of years at these school facilities, and so it's important to me that we continue to support the district as a whole.
Thank you, Jessica. And what I'd like to do is just restate what I said before. If you have questions for either candidate or both, please feel free to put it in the chat. Or you can also, if you'd rather stay anonymous, you're welcome to call or text me. I'll put my phone number in the chat again. And so feel free to do that as well. And then, so what I'd like to do now is we'll hear from Gary, and then we'll hold questions until you've both introduced yourself and talked about your reason you're running and your vision for the school board, okay? So Gary, go ahead and introduce yourself. Would love to hear from you.
All right. Well, thank you. Hi, I'm Gary Tripp, and I've been a citizen of Rio Rancho for the past 22 years. Actually, in 1999, just a brief history about how I got here. I accepted a job as assistant principal at Rio Rancho High School, and I was in charge of the Business and Technology Academy. And when I was commuting from Moriarty. Moriarty was the place I started my educational career as a teacher, and then moving into administration. I was there in Moriarty for 17 years. So that first year at Rio Rancho High School was a very quality year, a very good year for me. But I was commuting from Moriarty. And the first day of vacation after graduation, the very first day of vacation, I was mowing my backyard in Moriarty, and I got a call from Emma Dreyer. And if some of you are familiar with the history of Rio Rancho, Emma was Dr. Cleveland's main administrative assistant when this district started. And Emma said, "Gary, can you come and see Dr. Cleveland in the next half hour?" And I said, "Well, I really can't, but I'll be there as soon as I can." And I was able to get in the shower and get over there, and to find out that Katie Harvey had resigned, and I was tapped to be the interim principal at Rio Rancho High School, which turned out to be a long extended 5-year period of being the principal at Rio Rancho High School. So that was, and now we're here, Jeanette and I, 22 years later. My wife, Jeanette, has been also an educator in this district. She's been a teacher at Enchanted Hills and opened Cielo Azul Elementary, and retired to take care of our beautiful, wonderful, perfect grandchildren, right? When you're a grandparent, everybody has perfect grandchildren. So, but retired to take care of them, and then actually has been a guest teacher, like we like to call, not a substitute teacher, because she is a teacher licensed and can pick up a classroom and provide some quality learning. And I think a lot of our substitutes that have their degrees and have quality experience do a great job for us in the Rio Rancho community. So 22 years in Rio Rancho, 38 years now in education, and just real briefly, 17 years at Moriarty. Then another 5 years at Rio Rancho High School. And then 10 years at the New Mexico Activities Association. Was fortunate to be the director of high school and middle school activities in the state of New Mexico, running the second largest economic event in the state, which is the high school state boys and girls basketball tournament next to the Balloon Fiesta. Then retired from the NMAA and went out to Zia Pueblo, and was able to be the superintendent principal there at Zia for 3 years, and then came back to Rio Rancho to the district office for 2 years. And then the last few years, I've been a human resource director, if you will, at Cooperative Educational Services. And if you want to think of Cooperative Educational Services, think of Costco. We provide all the public schools and charter schools all their needs, whatever you can think of. So that's a little bit about my educational background. I'm a New Mexican. I was raised in Las Vegas, New Mexico, graduated from West Las Vegas, earned my BA at New Mexico Highlands University, my MA in Education Administration at New Mexico Highlands University. And why am I running? I think we're going to get into that next. But I will tell you that my circle of friends my circle of who I've been a part of for the last close to 40 years have been educators. Whether it's the custodians or the secretaries or the teacher aides or the teachers, we're kind of one family in education. And I don't want to be away from that. I feel like I contributed a lot to that, and we'll get into that with some of the reasons. And I want to be a part of that. And I think I'm a person that looks at things with the glass half full, always looking to keep filling it up even further. So we'll get into that, and I think in a few minutes. But that's a little bit about me, and I'm thankful that the union has endorsed me, and I'm very much appreciative of that. And we can talk about that also. But that's a little bit about Gary Tripp.
That's fabulous, Gary. Thank you so much. And an interesting couple of one interesting side note is that my daughter, Michaela, who is now 20, Jeanette Tripp, Gary's wife, was Michaela's third grade teacher. And so we've got a lot of history. And it was really interesting because when I ran for office, when I ran for the New Mexico House of Representatives, I was at an event and I happened to run into Gary and Jeanette at this event. And I hadn't seen either of them for so long. It was really neat to see them. And it's nice because our paths have converged again. And, as a union, we're very careful about who we endorse, and especially in school board races, because they have a very direct impact on staff and on our students. And so, Jessica and Gary both filled out a questionnaire for us. And one of the questions that's in that questionnaire that really kind of highlights the work that we do as a union was how they envision the district and the union continuing to work in a collaborative relationship, because we've worked really hard to make sure that collaboration between the district and Rio Rancho School Employees Union continues. It has succeeded, and it's actually resulted in a lot of really good things for the staff and the students in our schools. And we want to make sure that continues. And so if you don't mind, Jessica, and then Gary, after Jessica finishes, could you just talk a little bit about how you view the district and the union working together?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing that back up. So one of the things I didn't mention in my introduction is that I did spend time as a union rep and as the vice president of our union for law enforcement. And so I have a lot of experiences understanding really what the function of unions are and how that collaboration is necessary to work with management and other stakeholders. And I think that's something so not only does that experience help me and make it a priority for me to keep good communication from, between the district, the school board, and you guys, we're all working towards common goals. And if we don't have open communication and an understanding that sometimes, we're going to have to agree to disagree, or maybe, like I said, maybe it's just challenging people to look at it from a different perspective or a bigger picture. But also just having open, honest communication is essential in maintaining those relationships. And that's something that, like I said, that I learned throughout my career that I think is extremely important. I also, during my time at Farmington, helped negotiate the initial contract with the establishment of their union up at Farmington PD. They had a union and they had dissolved it. They hadn't had one in a lot of years. And so I worked on the management side of things and helping them come to that agreement for that initial collective bargaining agreement. And so, I see unions as a mechanism to give a pathway for how to deal with problems. And really, to me, that's what a collective bargaining agreement is. And it kind of gives us that framework of how we should work together. And so I definitely view things not as an adversarial relationship ever. I look as collaborative relationships that are necessary to make sure that we have voices represented from all of our stakeholders. You're muted, Billy.
You'd think after doing this for a year and a half with kids, I would remember to unmute myself. So you hit at the heart of the reason that I love to do union work, which is that we want to make sure that that collective voice is heard. And so thank you for sharing that. It's really important. Gary, how about you? What do you think about the collective, that collaborative relationship that we have with the district?
I really appreciate Jessica's background and didn't know all that. until right now. And one of the things that I think I bring to the table is I'm a consensus builder, and I'm one to look at best practices. And so I would be one to look at my partner, Jessica Taylor, for guidance in that area. But when it comes to unions, on my side of the management side and education, being a principal, an assistant principal, a director, I've been working a lot with union reps in my career, and I hope that one of the things that the union reps would share with you is the fact that Gary Tripp, as an administrator, was a very open-minded, a very transparent communicator, somebody that worked as a listener, and when there was a problem, wasn't afraid to make sure that we were talking and making things work for the best interest of kids. The other thing that I really liked about working with the unions was the fact that a lot of people think about negotiations and conflict resolutions for employees, and those are important issues. For me, the unions always brought another form of professional development to the staff, whether it's in the classroom with the curriculum, or whether it's about the most important thing in my heart, which is school safety. And there's a lot of things that the union has, especially that they can turn to in their national institute, that when you work together for the betterment of kids on things like curriculum and school safety, and you're working on those things, and it makes it a lot easier to work on things when conflicts arise, because you have that quality relationship with your rep. So that's kind of been my background. I have a personal story about the importance of school safety, but my daughter was a teacher in APS, and she was Victoria Martin's teacher. So she became the spokesperson of that elementary school for when Victoria Martin was murdered. And I was back in Rio Rancho, and I was asked to sit at the table with the negotiation team, which I didn't do much but sit and listen. But the first time we went to a meeting with the rep, Gino Satriani, when Gino and I have known each other for many, many years, the first thing out of his mouth wasn't about the beginning of negotiation. He says, "How's Gail? How's Gail doing?" And I don't know if Gino remembers that, but those are the things you don't forget. That's where I think where you can say, okay, you got a pretty good relationship with the union when you're close enough that that person across the table says, "Hey, how's Gail doing?" And so I can just say, from that perspective, as an administrator, hopefully union reps would vouch that there's a guy you can work with. You can talk to him, he'll listen, he'll share his viewpoint. Let's go back and forth. Let's keep this about the kids. So that's kind of my perspective with the union, but I really appreciate Jessica's background. And like I said, there's talents that we all could bring to the table on the Rio Rancho School Board. And hopefully my talents are from the educational background. There's a law enforcement background, a union background, and there's some skills there. So we bring all our skills together and we make it better for the kids of Rio Rancho, New Mexico.
Yeah, for sure. Another question that we had on our survey that I thought would be really important to bring up is surveying the staff. One of the questions that we asked you in our survey was how you felt, or in our questionnaire for you, is how you felt about surveying the staff and families before a big decision is made. And if it's okay, I'd actually like to switch it and have Gary go first this time, if that's okay with you, Jessica.
Of course.
Sure. Just like shake it up a little bit.
No problem. Billy, will you rephrase your question?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd be glad to. So one of the questions that we asked you in the survey is how you feel about, what we asked in the questionnaire was how you feel about surveying staff and families before big decisions. Can you talk about that?
Sure. One of the things that survey does, it gives you a feel of where everybody's at in the community, and it keeps the community feeling that things are very open-minded. I think back of the Columbine incident when Columbine occurred, and I remember surveying the Rio Rancho high school community, asking them how they felt about their child's safety. And there was a lot of uncomfort that I didn't even realize existed with the parents at Rio Rancho High School. And and so what I think surveys do, they give you insight to some things you may not know about. And so it's something that you need, that is really good to stay abreast. And then based on that survey at Rio Rancho High School, we brought in one of the key safety officers from Columbine that came in here for one whole week. And then 237 parents showed up. I think that's still a record for a high school PTO, if you will. But when it's about your child's safety, you will show up. And so we had 237 people, parents sign in that night. And we found out that Rio Rancho High School at that time was no different than Columbine High School. And these are some of the measures you need to take in order to make sure that children are safe. And once they feel safe, then they're going to learn. And so, I try to give examples to answer the question. I hope that works. But
Absolutely,
I think that surveys really do give you insight about what people are thinking. And it may sometimes not be what you want to hear, but at least it gives you a strategy of how you can now address it, because now you know that this is the issue. So
Sure.
I'm not I don't mean to be very movement of hands there. So I'll
Oh,
keep my
you're
hand
fine,
down.
Gary. No. I like hearing from you, and I actually really like it when you're animated when you talk, because it expresses your personality more. Don't be dry. It's all good. And I apologize. I know my computer's probably shaking. I have a dog on my lap. She's like our mascot for Rio Rancho School Employees Union. But sometimes she bumps the computer, so I apologize. I hope I'm not making anybody sick to their stomach. So Jessica, how about you? How do you feel about surveys of families and staff and that kind of stuff to get like a temperature when you're making big decisions?
And I don't have the answers to the survey right in front of me, but I think what I had responded and how I feel about it is that they can definitely be instrumental in, getting, like Gary said, a pulse of how parents feel or the community feels or the teacher feels. But that I also think that how you go about them is you have to be really careful, because I think sometimes they can give a false sense to the members of, they can give a false sense to people of, that we're going to go with the majority no matter what. And I think my job as a school board member is to sometimes be the person to make those difficult decisions. And I'm willing to shoulder that responsibility. So I think that the use of surveys is definitely important and instrumental in getting the pulse and utilizing, especially just the technology that we have. We have that ability now to survey people and get their input. But you have to be cognizant of the fact that not everybody's going to participate, that, that you can't make everybody happy, and that ultimately my role, they had it reserved. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, I got kicked out of the classroom I was using, so now I'm standing in my dog's hallway.
No worries, it's okay.
So now I'm gonna make you guys sick by moving. Thank you. I'm gonna grab my back. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. No, it's okay.
So I think, that I have to, as a school board member, I have to know that it's my responsibility to make those tough decisions, and that I'm not going to make everybody happy all the time. And that's okay. But just in the general sense, I think surveys are a great way to get the pulse and get that input and get people's buy-in and have them, be participatory in decision making. But like I said, just making sure that people are clear on the fact that, this is either data collection or, how is it going to be utilized in the decisions that are coming forward. And so I think that that's important, that when you do the surveys, that the intentions of how the information will be used is clearly communicated.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, so it looks like we have a question from Yolanda, and I'd like to open it up to questions. I don't have my glasses on, so I'm going to have to squint a little bit, but what ideas do you have with increasing safety in transportation for students, student riders, and staff? Consequences for violence on the bus between students and students and then students to staff as well. So Gary, you talked a lot about safety. Can you answer that question first for us?
Well, you know what? One of the things that I've been doing, and I'll continue to do even more so in the next few weeks, but I've been holding my sign up at elementary schools in my district and middle schools. I haven't done the high schools yet. I feel like I have a pulse there. One of the things that I think we need to really look at is working with the city and the county, because of the fact that we need more signage up. We also need possible speed bumps going into elementaries and middle schools and so forth. At Rio Rancho High School, the staff and the students didn't like it, but we put speed bumps everywhere. So you're either going to ruin your car, or you're going to drive 5 miles an hour. We had a young lady hit in front of Sandia Vista Elementary School just 2.5 weeks ago. And I know the notice was sent out to the parents and to the community of Sandia Vista. But I happened to talk to one of the parents, not the parent of the child that was hit, but another parent that was very concerned over transportation and safety around the schools. Now, that doesn't necessarily address the buses. When it comes to the buses, we have a camera in every bus. That was something that was brought forth by a county commissioner named Dave Bency, actually, years ago. And that's a format about, to answer the question, one of the things is, what can the school district, the city, and the county do together to create to create the safest situation for that child while they're being transported, or while they're walking, or while their parents are taking them to school? Because that's the beginning of the day and that's the end of the day. And if you've ever done any work around love and logic, that is a critical time to get students so that they can work on their learning. So I'm all about, I'm a rule follower, and I'm so much about police officers citing somebody for being 2 miles over the speed limit around any school when it comes to making sure that our children are safe and well-being. When it comes to consequences about violence, I think there's a rule of metrics, but I think when it comes to violence, now that we're in a pandemic, we're seeing a lot of mental wellness needs that need to come into the picture. So I don't want to come across to say that I'm not against consequences. I enforce consequences as an administrator for many years, and hopefully my evaluations demonstrated that I can enforce the school district policy as a quality administrator. But there's a component that we got to make sure that every child that has an outburst, if you will, or has violence, that there's some kind of social emotional wellness plan in place for that child also. And so there probably already is. I don't want to say that there's not, but my job would be to go in and research and make sure that both of those avenues are being provided. And then the third thing, with the one with the consequences, is learning still taking place when there are consequences? So there's a lot of work to be done when you're talking about the consequences for violence, because you want to make sure learning continues. You want to make sure the social emotional well-being of the child is growing, because these are children. So therefore, it's our job to continue to make sure they're in school and they become productive citizens. So there's a lot of plans in place that needs to be there. But I really want the school board to reach out with the city and the county to make sure that we have everything in place that we should have. In front of Enchanted Hills Elementary School, another school in my district, we have a light to slow people down. However, that light is behind a tree, and I'm just wondering if we called the city maintenance department and they would take care of it in a heartbeat. So the communication chain, I know that's a small example, but the communication chain just needs to be there to make sure that the little things are taken care of. And a lot of people are good when they see the warning signs, oh, it's time to slow down. they really will slow down. And for those that need a reminder, I'm very supportive of that Rio Rancho police officer giving them that reminder, so.
Thank you, Gary. How about you, Jessica? How would you address any kind of stuff on the bus, as it is?
That he brings a great point as far as safety and transportation goes, especially around our schools. Partnering with our other resources is extremely helpful and beneficial, and making sure that they're helping us kind of shoulder that weight. I know that a lot of times when our school crossing guard by our elementary school is gone, that there'll be a Rio Rancho PD officer out there directing traffic, and just utilizing them when we really need them. As far as making sure that our bus drivers are maintaining a safe environment for our kids, I think that things like that come down to education and then support. I know as a parent, there's been times where you feel like you can barely maintain control over your 2 kids or 3 kids in the car. So I can imagine how challenging it is for them with a whole bus of students. But also that means it's even that more, it's much more important for them to maintain that safety. And so making sure that they have the tools to be successful. I mean, we're asking those school bus drivers, like I said, to transport those students, pay attention to, the traffic, maintain the behavior on the school bus. And so that's a lot to ask of them. And so to make sure that they have the skill sets available to de-escalate situations and to enforce the rules, and making sure that we're supporting them when they are reporting that behavior. I think a school bus driver would be an extremely difficult position, and one that's so important in order for us to maintain, equal opportunity for our kids to get to school. And, I know that I would get so frustrated when my kids were at Mountain View. Their bus, they would often be short a bus driver or a bus. I'm not sure which it was. And so we would get this automated message that said, due to unforeseen circumstances, the kids were going to be late that day. And I'm like, okay, if it happens 5 days a week, it's not unforeseen circumstances. Change your message to me, have that clear communication. What is the actual issue that's preventing them from being able to provide that service? But again, it goes back, especially now, to our staffing abilities and making sure, I know there's been a huge push in the hiring for our school bus drivers, but really, I think as far as safety concerns, it's making sure that we're providing them adequate training, and then again, support for when they do have to confront issues, and making sure that we're trying to give them the tools to be successful in the job that we're asking them to do, because it's a big ask.
Sure. Well, especially when you read Yolanda's comment that there are 71 kids on a GE bus. That's a lot of kids.
Billy, can I add something?
Yeah, absolutely. Please do, Gary. Yeah.
Jessica's quality comments, it reminded me of something that I did actually write down in my notes, but I didn't put in my survey. And that is, one of the things that we have to remember also is we need to really focus on the engineers that are developing our schools. And I was a principal at Mountain View Elementary School in the Moriarty Edgewood School District. And we had a terrific situation for 700 elementary kids, K-6. We had the bus parking lot was completely different from the parent drop-off area. It was really nice. The problem was that the building was built where that bus drop-off was on the shade side in the winter. And so we had a lot of broken arms with the elementary kids. So I wanted to get at was, when I was looking at these elementary schools in the future, we really need to take into account that parents drop off our students, buses transport our students, and staff, because these are large elementary schools, there's a lot of vehicles from staff that come into that lot. So we really need to make sure also that the engineers with this community passes a lot of money in bonds. And we just need to make sure that the engineers are doing their homework with the ins and outs of traffic flow with what's going on. And you know what? We grew too fast overnight. So I'm not trying to blame anybody in the history. We have inherited a lot of problems from this population growth, and it's wonderful because people want to be in a quality school district. I was the same way as Jessica. What the reason I came here, but we need our engineers to do some really quality background when it comes to roads and access and entrance and exits.
This dog is going to be the bane of my existence. She's only a puppy, so she doesn't know it's not time to play right now. She's like, it's time to play, Mom. Come on. Given that, I would actually really like to open the floor to Jennifer. She actually has a question, it looks like. So, Jennifer, please unmute yourself and ask away.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Trujillo. I'm a parent of two students at Cleveland, and I might have missed this. I kind of joined late. I just wanted to know, Gary, Tripp, and Jessica, what jurisdiction do you cover? Because I wanted to know if it was in my area where I live, or even if it's not, I can reach out to friends and family in your areas. I know a lot of people. Gary, I know
Yes,
you. I don't know if you remember who I am, but I'm Christine Perea's cousin.
Oh, hi.
Yeah. Hi. So when I saw your signs up around here in my neighborhood, I said, wow, I never realized you were an administrator, but when I saw your signs, I said, he has to be the candidate. His wife was a teacher. Anybody that's married to an educator, they know what we go through. And listening to the conversation, I didn't realize that you were a principal as well. So even better, both educators in the family. So can you just tell me where the jurisdiction is at, or what areas?
I can tell you that Jessica and I kind of have a dividing line. If you go up Enchanted Hills Boulevard,
okay,
where Albertsons is, right there on 528. If you go directly west all the way up on Enchanted Hills Boulevard, Jessica's is up to the north, and I'm to the south. So where Mountain View Middle School is that whole side is my District 1. If you go on the other side of Enchanted Hills Boulevard, where Vista Grande Elementary is located, and take that north side, that's Jessica's district.
Okay.
District 5.
So then that means I'd be voting for Jessica, because I live on Coyote by Vista Grande Elementary.
Yes.
So that's great. I'll make sure to let my neighbors know for that on Jessica's part. And then
Thank
Gary, I can reach out to some families on that south side that I know of Enchanted Hills.
Also Rivers Edge 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Rivers Edge 1, 2, and 3, and then I live right up the street from Sandoval County building, the administration building. So that whole neighborhood, and
near Idalia.
Yes, near Idalia. Yep.
Okay.
On both sides.
I have family that live on that street as well.
Great. Thank you. Please have them vote for me.
Okay.
And then, but I extend all the way up to the Pulte subdivision of Rio Rancho High School, where all those kids would go to Stapleton Elementary. So if you know anybody in the Stapleton, it's a pretty big array, and Jessica's is equal, but hers wraps around and goes towards Santa Ana Star Center, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Jessica, I'll let you fill in those blanks, but I think
Jessica, what can you elaborate on your district?
Yeah, so it's kind of like an upside down, I guess, stocking, if you will, because like he said, it goes Enchanted Hills all the way to the north to like North Hills and around. So the school district lines are pretty crazy, but there's definitely maps available on the school district website that show the better borders, and those have changed recently. So even when I was trying to get my exact districts, they gave me multiple different maps to try to utilize. So, but yeah, we would.
And if you have any yard signs, Jessica, I would love to put one in my yard. Or any type of signage.
Yeah, I did not do yard signs only because I'm running unopposed. But I would still, like I told Billy, I don't want to not have anybody vote for me, even though I'm going to be the only one on the ballot.
So are you replacing the one that resigned?
Kathleen, yes.
Kathleen, yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I also did forget to mention, so you brought up a good point, Jennifer, about having family. I don't have a background in education. I did spend 1 year teaching high school psychology last year at Rio Rancho High School, but my sister's been a teacher there at Rio Rancho High School for over 20 years. My grandmother and my aunt were both teachers. So we definitely come from a family, like I said, of public servants, whether it's teachers or my dad was a fireman. So education is, something that's really important to all of us, and I'm a product of public education, and so definitely support our teachers.
Awesome. So back to my parent mode. I have a daughter at Cleveland High School. She's a junior. So her last real experience at Cleveland was 9th grade. Okay. So I had some issues there. There's a huge drug problem at Cleveland. So I spoke out at board meetings on several occasions. So that would be something that I would want to have a sit down conversation someday on, because right now both of my kids are attending the Rio Rancho Cyber Academy, but my daughter has decided next year for her senior year she wants to return. So I still have some of those concerns. She witnessed some girls snorting cocaine in the bathroom, things like that. And the principal didn't really respond very well. That's why I had to go to the school board. It turns out that somebody at district office walked me out of the school board meeting and talked to me, and they addressed it and it got taken care of. But I know that there's still a big problem there with the drugs. So I just want to make sure that, we can sit down and have a conversation on how we can look at.
I have 2 students at Cleveland also. I have a freshman and a junior. And so, obviously our student safety and a good learning environments, and obviously going to be one of my biggest priorities.
Okay. Yeah, I've been very happy with Rio Rancho Public Schools. Elementary, middle school have been great, but high school has been a challenge for my family. Not just the drugs, but just certain things that the school has implemented and hasn't followed through with certain things. And I feel like I keep voicing, but nobody's listening. So I want to make sure that I can sit down and have a conversation with you guys to just, that way because I know at board meetings they talk about all the great things happening, but they don't always want to talk about. They didn't really want me to talk about what I talked about. They cut me off short. So
yeah, I will tell you. So the other thing I brought up that I think gives me some good experience with serving on the school board is I, for years, oversaw our school resource officer programs. And so, I learned how, administrations of schools don't always want to acknowledge like you said, those more difficult or challenging things that aren't going to be held, shine your school in a positive light, but acknowledging that there's that problem. And then how you address that problem is much more important. I mean, you're going to have kids that do drugs at every school. That's just unfortunately going to be something that occurs. That's the world we live in. But how you deal with that is how it's important. And so I know that, sometimes, like you said, people don't want to talk about the bad things, but, turning a blind eye to it or not talking about it in public isn't going to be helpful. So,
So Jennifer, I just want to respond to that and I can't speak to this school board, but I agree with Jessica, being on the team and being a listener and knowing what's going on. But I will share with you when I had this come up as the Rio Rancho High School principal with the parents, and it often did. First and foremost, the head of my security staff and myself met with that parent. And we were able to take back to the other security guards on the campus what's happening. This is what they're saying occurring. And we were trying to create some research and some goodwill that we were actually looking into it. And we were constantly having meetings with those parents. But I always said this, your high schools are different, especially when you have 2,700. I had 3,400. And I used to relate to the parents that Santa Rosa, New Mexico had 3,000 total citizens, and they had a hospital, a police force, state police support. They had all this, they had Guadalupe County Sheriff Department. At Rio Rancho High School, we had 4 security officers and we had 4 assistant principals. And all we could do is give us, and we would ask those girls that would be friends of your daughter, give us as much information as possible, and then let us try to do the best we can with that work, and we'll report back to you. But that's just, I'm just going to tell you that was my style. But I'm all about, like you said, school safety, and I'd be willing to have a conversation with you. Fortunate if you tell people to go vote for me and I win the election, then we'll definitely.
Oh, I'll definitely do that, Gary. I know you, Christine today talks highly of both you and your wife. I know you're the perfect candidate for this position. I have no doubt. And I I am more than willing to campaign, do whatever it takes to support that process. I'm an educator myself, 21 years. So I'm happy to see that you're stepping up and
So you have
wanting
wins
to
on
make
it.
some
Thank
changes.
you.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
So,
Yeah.
thanks
Thank
for
you
letting
for
me
your
ask some
questions.
questions. I appreciate that.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Jennifer, for bringing
Jennifer.
those up. They're important.
Thank you, Gino.
So Gary and Jessica, I'm sorry, you guys, this dog, I swear. I have an anonymous question from one of our attendees. And this attendee asked, how can we change the culture in RRPS to be more caring to its employees?
More what?
More caring to its employees.
Okay.
And Denise, you'll be next.
Yeah. So for me, this was something I witnessed a little bit of last year being a teacher for the 1 year I was within the district. And especially during, trying to be a brand new teacher during a pandemic was not my smartest, was not the best timing that I've ever had in my life. But it was, but I learned so much, and I saw how communication or a lack of communication to me really, so to me, it's almost a communication style, how that can affect the culture of caring. And, so I think it starts, I think it's everybody's responsibility. I don't think it's any one person's responsibility. I don't think it's just district office. I don't think it's just school administrators. I don't think it's just you as the union. I think it's one of those things that it takes everybody's participation and willingness to contribute to that culture. And, I think that that's one of the things I've always prided myself with in every position I've ever held is that, people are our best resources. And if you don't care about your people, and if you don't have some, genuine connection with them, you're starting from behind the power curve. And so that's something that I know that I will bring to the board is that I do care about people, and I think that spreads, but it is everybody's responsibility. And so I think that it takes time, it takes patience, and it takes redundancy and effort sometimes from those people that are willing participants to start to kind of change that culture. In the experiences that I've had with my kids, like I said, over the last 18 years in the school district, I feel like there is that culture of caring for the most part. Now, like I said, I can see where there's frustration for sure, especially during the times that we're in now. Things have, are more challenging than ever. And so you have to kind of take that up a notch and, find ways to connect with people. Gary had talked about a story earlier about, when somebody asks you how you're doing, that can go so far. When they remember your kid's name, or, how's your puppy, Billy? Anything to show that you're paying attention matters. If it's, but it has to, like I said, it has to be genuine. And so, those are things that I think that that every place can work at being better at, just our world in general. But I think that it's definitely a doable thing.
Thank you, Jessica. Gary, how about you?
I would echo almost everything Jessica said, and just add another component to that has served me well, but it's very time consuming, is I'm a committee freak. I set up committees for everything, but I try to put the right people on those committees that brings into a solution-oriented group. At the New Mexico Activities Association, we have what was called sports-specific committees, and coaches girls softball coaches were part of making decisions about girls softball. When I came back to Rio Rancho High School, as an example, on the school calendar committee, I asked Wonder Dental and I asked Joanne, I said, would you come and serve on the calendar committee? Because we educators need to hear from the business leaders in the community, especially the dentists, little things about, cleanups and everything else that occurs. So we need that component of the business community, because there might not be something we're realizing or respecting. And then back then, teachers brought up about, we're a melting pot community. So what about right before Thanksgiving for us? That's a real important time for us to go back with families. So I would just echo everything Jessica said, but I think you can set up some really good committees with people that understand what needs to be there to help everyone know that you care about each other and that you can respect everybody's where they're coming from, and that way you're making decisions in the right direction for hopefully the majority. So
yeah, and I'll just add back off that idea a little bit. One of the things that I always found to be really successful in my previous career, like Gary said, so much of it is identifying the right people, but also identifying that people, that different, whether it was a different shift or a different, area command in my previous life, or for us, a different school, every school is going to have its own kind of tone and culture, and you have to respect that. And so if you want to, start a program that's going to increase caring, it can't always necessarily be the same across the board. You have to be willing to, take the individuality of the schools and let it build off of that. And so understanding too that it's not always a one size fits all approach. And so embracing, the cultures of certain or certain aspects of certain cultures within different schools would be important to so that you're not, making things worse when you're trying to make them better.
Well, that's a lot like classroom teachers or bus drivers. You know that each one of your children also has a different need. So we always provide different things for our different students as well.
Yeah.
So our next question will come from Denise, and then Yolanda, if you still have a question, it would be you next, but I noticed that you put your hand down. So if you do want to ask a question, Yolanda, make sure you put your hand back up so I don't forget. So Denise, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say, Gary, I'm really excited to see you back with us because I know that you do bring a lot of experience, and you're also very compassionate and empathetic. And I've always just had great interactions with you. And I know that you are a cousin to everybody in New Mexico at some point or other. Somebody is a cousin to you somewhere. So I know that we share a mutual person, Renee, who is your cousin. So, yes, so I find that that's good ties. My question is, and it falls kind of in line with the last question, and Jessica, you also touched at this at the beginning of the meeting in talking about the lack of the many positions that are open right now, and it seems like there are many open positions. And one of the things that I would like to see addressed, and I know a lot of people that my teacher friends that I talk to, and I am a union liaison, I have been for a couple years now at a couple different schools, is the teacher workload. The teacher workload has become, we used to talk about having so much on our plates. Well, we've graduated to platters. We've graduated to trays. We are, and this goes along with the self-care. And I know that some of them is dictated by the state and the requirements of what's happening. But the temperature of the teachers right now is they are emotionally drained and exhausted. And with the workload and the expectations that are being placed on us, I mean, we signed this contract that has our duty date on it, which there seems to be, it's impossible to fill every single one of those. And there's an underlying that we'll get it done because we work 60, 70 hours a week. We don't have our weekends. We don't have just to be able to prep for our classes. Our time is being taken away from us for duties. I mean, I spent the weekend creating my PDP and doing stuff for the state, which, I don't know another profession where you have to prove, I don't know how many times a year what you're doing in your classroom, which takes away from the teaching of the classroom. And every year it seems to be getting more and more and not less and less. And also the other issue is that there seems to have been a shift, and it may have been, but that parents really have a strong voice in the district, but I really think it's overshadowing the teacher voice. And when teachers are not feeling supported by the district, sometimes just even undermined by the district, And so it's really a big, we're at a point, I think, at a crossroads, at a breaking point where there's not a lot of people going into the field. You see a lot of people retiring that maybe wouldn't have retired, but the expectations that are just being placed on us is just unreal. And so, I know some of it comes from the state, but I also know that, Rio Rancho prides itself on being the #1 district, and I don't know if, running towards that finish line, they've lost sight of what a teacher really needs to be doing. We don't spend a lot of time planning and prepping for our class because we're in PDPs, and so something's got to give. I mean, I feel like we're in a crisis, and if you take the temperature and teachers are afraid to speak up because of what's going on, retaliation, our evaluations, and so I'm throwing that out there. I'm throwing it on the table, and I know, Gary, that I know that you've worked a lot of your magic in the past, and I know you have my vote, and I'm hoping that if I'm on the right side of Enchanted Hills, you have my vote. So I'm up the
You
street from
can't you
Mount.
can't be on you can't be on the wrong side of Enchanted Hills is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
right.
That's true. That's what.
But it is.
So
But it is. We definitely want to work on supporting Gary since he is has an opponent. So I'm just teasing with that.
no,
That was funny.
it's very refreshing to maybe see some new ideas, some new thinking outside the box. You guys had said, but just so I mean, I think teachers are just really just barely hanging on right now, and I don't think that's recognized. And they talk about self-care. You have to have self-care, and that let us know how we can support you, and you tell them how we need support, and then they figure out a way to put it back on you. And so I just don't feel like I do feel like we're at a crisis point right now. And so, you know, I I hope, there can be some, I don't know, lobbying at the state level. I know the state requires a lot, but how is how is that determined by our district to meet those state requirements? I mean, going above and beyond, I can see, but when it takes a considerable amount of time away from us being able to craft. I mean, we go to all these trainings, but we're never really able to implement anything because we don't have time to really prep and plan for implementing the plethora of things that we have to attend.
Denise, Gary, do you mind if I jump in really quick? Just really quick. I want to make sure that those on the call understand that Gino and I, we are very aware of this circumstance across the district. And it's something that we're actively working on. I can't elaborate right now, but I will as soon as I'm able to. We are working on it actively, and it's something that we're going to try and have a remedy for very soon. So please know that it's something that we're working on. I do want to hear from Gary and Jessica. I want to say one thing real quick. Jessica does have to go in just a few minutes. So Gary, if it's okay, I'm going to let her go first so that we can let her go.
Sure.
And Yolanda has a question, and then Jessica, I'll actually, after Yolanda has asked her question, I'll text it to you. And if you'd like to text your answer back, I can give it to Yolanda so that she can hear from you. Okay.
Okay. Excellent.
Right.
Yeah. So Denise, I mean, I think you bring up, the voice of so many teachers I've talked to. And like I said, I spent 1 year in the classroom last year. And so I saw, firsthand, I saw how little time there was to prep and, with just the ever changing schedules. And one of my best friends is an elementary school teacher, and she talks to me all the time. Like you said, there's no more room on the plate to put things yet. Additional things keep coming. And so there's something has to give, and we can't lose our teachers. And so I'm glad to hear that you guys are working on things. And it's definitely something, in one of the other questionnaires I received, it's like, we have to respect the fact that we don't have all the power as the school board to make decisions unilaterally. And we have to respect the fact that, one of my old bosses said, you have to realize that everybody has a boss. And we have the New Mexico Public Education Department over us as a school board. And so the school board won't be able to, wave a magic wand. So I don't want to give that, but I do think that it's important that that you guys know that your school board will be definitely hearing those things and looking at ways to kind of help alleviate that pressure, because there's only so much that individuals can do. And that was one of the reasons why I only spent the 1 year in the classroom. I thought, I cannot put in this many hours at this point. Like I had done a full career where I took away so much from my family, and saw how much work it really took to be a good teacher. And I didn't want to be a mediocre teacher. And so when you saw, the amount of hours that, like you said, the endless amount of planning and grading and prepping, and you didn't have that time at school because even, for your prep, you're getting pulled out to cover somebody else's class, or you're getting tasked to do something else. Something has to change, whether it's a schedule change. Adding 2 weeks to the calendar year, I don't think was necessarily helpful with helping teachers feel like they were going to get that break to be able to catch their breath. And so I'm definitely open to ideas and ways that we can support our teachers with that. I think it's extremely important.
Denise, and to everybody out there, this is such a difficult question, or this is probably the most difficult thing out there. I saw my wife teach elementary school for 30 years and teach 4 different subjects, and then 5 different subjects, and then 6 different subjects, and 7 different subjects, and do this and that. And then last year I saw my daughter teach virtually, and I thought, oh my God, how is she doing it with 2 kids? And then I saw people, teachers, friends, family, do both, teach virtually and teach in a classroom. And I thought, oh my gosh, my head is just, but this is the biggest challenge we have in education. And I don't have an answer, and I don't think anybody has an answer, but isn't it ironic that we don't take anything off the plate? And I've always said this, when the Common Core came, I was at the NMAA, and I was at a table with 15 superintendents around the state of New Mexico. And I said, do you think this might be a possibility that you're going to actually take something off an educator's plate before you put this new Common Core standards in place? And they said, oh yeah, this is going to be a lot of things removed from an educator's plate. Well, it became from a plate to a platter. I think that was a perfect analogy that Denise gave. The best systems in the world, when you do research in education, they are like seeing the best games or the best coaches on Sunday when you watch football, or when you watch your favorite team. When you see the best people, the best performances, they're KISS, right? They're keeping it simple, stupid, right? The old KISS analogy. And we have never done that in the United States, in all 50 states. I do remember about 20 years ago, the state of Minnesota, the only thing that they worked on was a teacher had a choice to receive professional development in the area they wanted. And they removed all the assignments from the teachers as far as extra duties. And they allowed the teacher to pick what their weakness was and go on to professional development. But all we do from a political side, all we do from a state side, and all we do, and I was one of them from an administrative side, is we keep adding from this plate to platter. I don't have a crystal ball, but I do think I am an advocate. I know Denise very well, so I think she knows that I am an advocate for teachers. And I'm also something that I want to refer to very strongly, because I taught for the last 3 years. I taught teachers that wanted to get their administrative degree all over the state of New Mexico. I worked with well over 300 teachers that were about to go into administration. And I said, if you want a good culture in your school, and you want to make sure you're a caring administrator, and you want to do your best for those teachers in the building, all you have to do is one thing. Keep your mouth shut for 6 months and listen. Listen to your parents, listen to your teachers, listen to your custodians, listen to your bus drivers. Listen, listen, listen. I have given that advice for the last 20 years, and I always comes back and they say, "Oh man, after doing that for several months, uh, it was pretty easy. We were all kind of on the same page. It didn't mean teachers weren't frustrated, but everybody was getting along a little bit easier, and everybody felt like administrators had their back. And one thing we don't do enough of as politicians, as the state, as administration, we just don't do enough listening, because the answers are probably right here on my screen. And once we listen and we collaborate, we can maybe get to a point where we can figure out, okay, we know this, we have to do this, and this, but let's do it this way. And I can live with that. So I think that's only part of the answer, but it would set us on the right path if we were listening to each other and collaborating with each other. We can come up with a consensus a little bit better. But that's not a magic formula, but that's the best I've been able to come up with when I've been training teachers that are going to be administrators. And thank you for the word compassion, Denise, because if we all had a little bit more compassion about our lives and what we having to deal with day to day, then it'll make it a little bit easier to come up with some agreements about how we move forward. And because we all love kids, we all want our kids to be the next president, or we want them to be the next greatest attorney, or we want them to be the next great first chair in the New York Orchestra, or whatever the case might be. We just got to listen to each other and be a little bit more open-minded. And we aren't going to have a magic road that we're going down every day as an educator, but we could have something that we can digest and live with a little bit better, because we know where each other's coming from, and we don't do enough of that. And I hope we do more of that. I know Gary Tripp will strive to do more of that.
That's great, Gary. Thank you. So I'm sure you noticed Jessica did have to go, but if of the questions that you all ask, I'll actually pass them on to her and ask her to submit a written response, and then I'll share it with you after the meeting. And I really am sorry with this little puppy. She can't help it. She just wants to play all the time. Yolanda, go ahead and unmute yourself, Yolanda. Let's hear from you next. And then I always forget, is it Marcia? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Yolanda and then Marcia.
Okay, so I've been listening in, and I really appreciate the answers coming from both Gary and Jessica. I'm thoroughly impressed with Jessica's answers, especially in pertaining to transportation. If you guys haven't guessed it, I am a transportation employee. I serve as a special needs attendant, but prior to that, I was in the classroom as a special needs EA. So since the age of 18, I am now going to be 40. So I have been involved with the union since 18 years old. And one of the things that I have experienced in this district is the involvement with the union and transportation, and pretty much how that had to evolve. And so it's been a great relationship, and we've had amazing improvements and involvement. I am a union liaison. I work closely with Gino. Love Billy. So I guess my question to you, to Gary and Jessica, is in the future going forward, especially with the board, is that relationship continuing and growing? Unfortunately, transportation came late in the game as far as the support from the union because of other blockage. But now that there is that support with the union within transportation, and I can speak for most of the employees there, our concern is that we get lost Our fear is that we get, I don't want to say ignored, but I guess overlooked. Overlooked is a good word. With our concerns and a lot of that with transportation, because we tend to be at the bottom of the totem pole in concerns. But what we do is quite important, especially with transporting our students. We do experience violence with the students on board, violence between the students, between students and staff. In our special needs, I'm with special needs myself. So if we were to come and express something, and we would like to know if we're going to be heard, if our concerns are going to be taken serious, and if that relationship is going to continue to grow.
You know, I hope it continues to grow. I hope that myself and my colleagues would be very open-minded. We'd be good listeners. We would be listening to a point where we're collaborating and we're saying, okay, do we need to go to this next step? What's the answer here? Or there's really no answers, but what's going to make it the path easier for bus drivers? I know that before I left, one of the things that I was a proponent of was to really make sure that love and logic would be seen, possibly implemented by elementary principals, because when you go through the love and logic program, when the kids leave the home, their parent that exit, and when they get on the bus, that entrance into education are the most critical components of getting the day started. And a lot of violence could be deterred if they leave their home in the right perspective and with the proper diet. And when they get on the bus, if there's that great atmosphere of love and logic, and there's components to that, then that student is off to the right foot for the day. And it just exponential learning occurs. And now the next step is how they're greeted when they enter in the building or into the classroom. But the component of leaving home, the component of getting on the bus, and the component of entering the classroom are critical phases in a child's education. And so I hope that I'm a great listener, because I don't have the answers. I was a bus driver in the day when I was a coach and I was driving my teams, but I was never a driver of taking kids to and from routes, which is completely different. I've driven on those routes the first day of school, a couple of times as an administrator, but that's not living in somebody's shoes. So that may be something that I probably need to do as a growth item, is drive a few routes, because until you walk in somebody's shoes a mile, that you really don't, you have a theory, but you don't have any practical, once I listen to you. And if we are going to move forward, I better walk a little bit in your shoes in order to get your perspective so we can grow. So I would be a proponent of that. All I could ask is that you trust me that I would grow with the bus drivers. I've been at the transportation, the new one, several times, and I was running for my other office with Dave Latham, because I was really looking into the growth of CTE. And one of my big pushes is, career technical education in this community, not just K-12, but for all adult educators as well as adult learners as well. But that was my perspective going to the bus driver. It wasn't some of the things you're talking about. So I can honestly say, guilty as charged. I need to get over there to be more open-minded about the whole perspective of transportation. So,
Gary, thank you for your honesty and your being so forthright. It's one of the things I really like about you, is that you are a good listener. You do hear what people have to say. And I'm confident that, having heard from you, that you have made a commitment to go and check out transportation and live the life of a bus driver for a couple of routes. I know you'll do it.
I certainly look forward to meeting you there.
Yeah, for sure. That's great. Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and make the last question, Marcia. We've been on for about an hour and a half. And that's longer than I thought, which is not a bad thing. That's actually really good. This has been a great conversation. So Marcia, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
So my question is, I'm an EA. This is my second career. I had been a social worker before for many years. I love teachers. Don't get me wrong. Teachers work and work and work. But what I find a lot of the time is the EAs are the ones that are taking over to help them out. You know, Wednesdays morning now, we are helping the teachers while they're getting trained. We cover for the teachers, it seems like a lot. Some EAs more than others.
Yeah.
With no compensation.
Yep.
And very little recognition or appreciation. So, you know, that's where I'm coming from. And I am not the only one. Trust me, I talked to all of the EAs in my school. And they're all feeling it, and they're all a little bummed out.
More than a little, Marcia, to be very frank about it.
Yep,
it's
right.
district-wide. It's a district-wide issue. It's something that we've seen year after year after year, and something that definitely needs to be addressed. We'd love to hear from you, Gary, about how you envision supporting EAs and ensuring that they have the resources they need to live a full life and enjoy the work that they do.
You know, when I was listening to the question, I immediately went back to Denise's responses about what's going on in education and the life of educators. We're kind of like a family. You know, one of the things I wrote in that hopefully you'll read in the Rio Rancho Observer before the election day is, you know, why are you running? And I want to stay in my family, if you will. You know, I've been around educators, and so when you brought up just a specific point about teacher aides, but the last question about bus drivers, is this family that we're in, and I'm not just speaking about Rio Rancho Public Schools now, I'm talking about education in general. Does this family of education have favorite sons and daughters, so to speak? And we're not addressing all of the family needs, because nobody's less or more important than the other person. So in addressing the needs for the teacher's aides, is a teacher aide, a bus driver, a teacher, a coach, a fine arts band director, we're all equals, and our needs are important, and the communication that we're being delivered is as important to me as it is to any other person in that building. The appreciation you show me or don't show me, I can notice, you know, that there's a favorite circle, if you will. When I was at Rio Rancho High School, I used to preach and tell my assistant principals, every day at lunch, you better be with a different circle of kids. If the skateboarders have nobody talking to them on one day a week, they're going to feel like nobody cares about them in this school. So you better go hang out with the skateboarders. You know, you got your computer geeks. They go over there underneath the humanities. You know, we know where they're at. You better go hang out with those. And so we need to show every circle of kids that we care about them, and we are there with them, and we want a relationship with them, and we want to learn their names, and we want to know how they're going. That's the same thing we have to do with teachers, assistants. That's the same thing we have to do with bus drivers. The same thing we do with teachers. And it's not something that we can just say, okay, we need to focus on teacher aides because of this. No, we need to make sure that teacher assistants, we need to make sure that bus drivers, from the last question, we need to make sure that whoever you are, you're as important as me. In fact, I'm less important because I'm not with the kids every day. I'm an administrator in my office during first period when you're dealing with those kids, and you're probably going to have to teach them English because they pulled the teacher off for an IEP. So you're more important than the administrator. And it probably goes in relationship to that other question about how people don't feel cared or appreciated. When you have that kind of culture, this is you get these kind of questions, people being left out. And maybe we need more people walking a mile in somebody's shoes to see what we're dealing with, which is what you're dealing with is with the kids. And you need to be given the gift of thank you, Marcy, for what you do. Thank you.
Right. Can I
And it
make
goes a long ways when it's meaningful. And then they see you. And when they say, you know, I saw you with Bobby the other day and how you handled that. And for you to know that that somebody saw that specific situation goes a long ways.
Right. Can I make a comment though? They do
Sure.
that. They do that.
Okay.
We are told how appreciated we are. They love they love the EAs. You know, you can say it, but unless you actually do something about it, it's meaningless. And a lot of it is compensation. A lot of it is, you know, salary and extra money. And, you know, it's great to say, oh, we love our EAs. But, you know, that just goes so far.
Gotcha. Point well taken.
You know, Jennifer actually put a note in the comment in the chat box about negotiating, and it's something that we've actually tried to do. We've tried to negotiate with the district for EAs being paid for when they sub, and you know all the things that Marcia just talked about. Unfortunately, with the district, you know, they I don't want to say that they're not willing to negotiate because that's not true. I think they are. I think they feel sort of hands tied around budgeting and that sort of thing. So we're going to keep pushing. It's something we've tried to negotiate for a couple of years now, and we'll keep trying. But knowing that we have some friends on the board who might be able to help push that a little bit more would be really helpful for sure. So it's something we'll keep working on.
I'd like to, you know, comment on that before Antoinette gets her question in there. So that you all know, I am on the national committee of PSRP. Those are the paraprofessionals. That's everybody from the bus attendants, bus drivers, custodians, cafeteria workers, maintenance workers, educational assistants, so on and so forth. So I'm on that national committee in DC with AFT New Mexico, with AFT. And then on AFT New Mexico, I am also I'm the co-chair of the PSRPs. We are pushing every year that $15 an hour. We are going this year to push more compensation for the educational assistants. And we did get, and Marcia, you are a retired social worker, but some of these other EAs that are just starting out, we got the bill of the Grow Your Own, and that was pushed by Kathy Chavez. I helped along with that bill to where EAs can go to school and still work at their site and get their education to do that. So we are highly active in the district, in the state, and in the national levels to try to get this. This is a huge priority for us, for those bus attendants and those educational assistants and those type of PSRPs it's a real big priority. We're trying to get a career ladder for them. We got a career ladder for the teachers 3 years ago when Martinez left and Governor Grisham, Lujan Grisham came in. So that is a high priority. We have, like Billy said, we are every year negotiating as far as subbing. We are negotiating as far as trying to get the compensation for when they do work, whether they get the comp time. This, like Billy did say, our friends that are get in. I mean, I always say this in a lot of the talks that I have on my PowerPoint is elections matter. And they do tend to hold a lot of weight. And if we get the right people in there that are always listening, like Gary, like Jessica, and the people that we can get to in those, not that we're going to hold them to the fire on it, but them listening and being able to push the narrative a little bit more, not just our voice. Now they can hear our voice and they can say, hey, what if, or what about, or what, those kind of things. That's what we're looking for. And I think at this next session that we're going into, which is a 30-day, which is finance, we're going to go push that in Senate Education again for the $15 an hour for all PSRP government public educators to start at that $15 an hour. not minimum wage, but that be the minimum of what they get. We're going to continue to push that. We're going to continue to push the career ladders for the EAs, the custodians, the bus attendants, the bus drivers. We're going to try to get career ladders. So I don't want you guys to think that it's going unnoticed. And Marcia, you always bring up great points, and I've talked to you a couple of times in there. And I'm glad Gary's here to hear that, because when he is elected, he's going to be able to have these conversations with his colleagues, and it's better because sometimes I will agree with you, Marcia, and I will always speak the truth, and Gary knows this. There's been some people on the board that turned the blind eye sometimes because they have their own narratives. I feel with these two candidates that we have here, I'm not their campaign manager, but I think that these two candidates right here are going to be good candidates for us to be able to talk to, so that they can go in and also maybe not change the minds, but maybe mold the minds of their colleagues to basically look at some of these needs, along with what Denise says with the high workload that they're getting and the high class sizes and so on and so forth. So again, these elections really, really matter. So I can get on that soapbox forever, because it's just one of those kind of things, because I'm always battling it at Santa Fe and at the national level. So I want you guys to feel comfortable at knowing that we, as your union reps, are pushing those kind of things, and we do hear you, and we're pushing really for Gary and Jessica to be able to help us a little bit further down the road, just baby step it going that direction. So, and there is a survey that's going to come out for what's going on with AFT New Mexico. They're going to be putting off a survey with the 10 days and all that other kind of good stuff, the overwork. So we'll be seeing that coming down the road for this next session, and we'll be keeping everybody up to speed on that. So I just want you to let you guys know, so it's a little bit more comforting to know that your voice is being heard and it's not going overlooked.
Thank you.
Gary, how about you? I know that you're itching to answer, I'm sure.
Yeah, I just was, I like what Gino said, because one of the thoughts that I have, and I'm pretty much retired or semi-retired, is the fact of, in line of molding. I've been able to be on the National Federation of High School Sports, which has almost close to $1 billion budget. I've been on the strategic planning of that budget committee. I ran the budget for a decade for the New Mexico's Activities Association. So I think I have some insight with budget development. And one of the things I'd like to do as a board member, if the board will allow me, is to be the rep on the budget process and on the budget committee. And that's something that at least when I worked as an administrator in the district, not too many board members volunteered for that boring work. And I call that, but I see that as an opportunity to see what's there. I don't have an answer. Can I give more compensation? That would be a false promise. That would be, that would be a lie. But I could get in there and do some research with that budget and some homework and see, is there something that we can gather from, or is there something we can go after? Can we look at that? I wish we could have another whole discussion on how America has really shifted in the salaries between management and the real skilled laborer in our country from 1960 till today, which is something I kind of ran on when I was running for the New Mexico House of Representatives. But in 1960, there was a 20% difference between management and the labor force. Today, there's 180% difference in the salaries. So I just want to be, I would like to be on that budget committee process all year long, so that I can really learn the ins and the outs of those line items to see what can we do to maximize the skilled labor that's going on with our children. Yeah.
It's an interesting point. It's something I've heard repeatedly from people in leadership, and it's this idea that if I need to know what your priorities are, show me your budget, show me where you spend your money, and that's where your priorities are. So our priority should always be with the people who educate our children, from top to bottom. So It's a good conversation. Thank you. Antoinette, do you still have a question?
It's not a question, it's more of a statement. It's kind of what I'm
Okay.
hearing from Marcia. It's kind of like a domino effect. I guess, the children have lost a lot of learning over these last few years. So a lot of PD has been placed on our plate. And so we're going to PD all the time. And so that's when the EAs are being pulled to cover our classes so we can go to a letters training or this, just so much. So the EAs are basically being just, I feel so bad for them because they're in the classroom teaching the classes so much because they're pulling us to go to this PD and that PD and this PD. And like, I think it was Denise was saying, there's no time to plan. So it's been a domino effect of trying to get the kids caught up. Let's just give the teachers more PD but that's not going to help. And it's getting everybody tired. And so that's my comment.
Yeah, for sure. It's a common theme that we've heard repeatedly this year. And just speaking as a first grade teacher, first grade got hit really hard this year. I finally met with small groups in my class to do intervention this week since the beginning of the year. Gary, that gives you an idea of how much PD and how much testing and how much time it's taken away from my students learning and getting the things they need from me. And that's really detrimental to my students. And so it's that conversation is really important. And I know that having a listener like Gary and an activist like Jessica on our school board is going to make a big difference. So I don't want to keep anybody much later. It's 7:15. I don't know about y'all, but after a school day, I'm fried. So I think we're all ready to take a break.
May I close real quick? Y'all, I just want to say, Jennifer, you touched on this earlier. Please, guys, I've been through a lot of these board elections throughout the years with Rio Rancho Public Schools. And we always get the, I guess, the bad press as educators because we're the worst that go out and vote. I just want to press the fact that we definitely need to get out in those areas. Jennifer, I appreciate you going out there and boots on the ground. Any of you other ones that live in these districts, I mean, we really need to press. I mean, elections do matter. So if you know anyone, I know all of my coaching fraternity has Gary's back who live in that area. Matter of fact, one of my baseball coaches, Ron Murphy's already went and early voted. So anybody that you guys know that live in that district, please spread the word. The election does matter. If we're going to get heard, the right people need to be in there to get heard and to mold the minds of what they're going to be pushing. So I just want to close with that. And I appreciate all of you showing up. And you guys have my number. You guys have Billy's number. Anytime you guys need anything, please reach out and ask us. It's never too late for me anyways. So just please do that. Go out and get out and vote for these two great candidates, especially Gary, because he's got an opponent, and I'm just going to say it outright. That guy is a whack job that is an opponent, and I'm just going to leave it at that. But I'm allowed to say that. Gary's not, but I'm going to say
it. Yeah, Gary, thank you for coming. Thank you for making time to come and talk with us and to hear the concerns of educators in our district. And we appreciate you. We appreciate your experience. And that's something that when you bring that experience to the table, it's going to make a big difference for us. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Let me just close with this. And because we've heard so many things, I don't want to give you a spill, but one of the things I do want to share with educators, everybody in this room, and hopefully people that see this, is I want to be an advocate with the Secretary of Education. And I'm hoping that Kurt Steinhaus stays there because Kurt and I have quality history together. And I want him to know what you are sharing with me. And that's one thing I will promise you is I think as a school board member, which they tend a tendency to stay away from, I think I can get in that door with the higher education people because I worked with them for a long time and we have a quality relationship. But I want to bring the stories that are being shared. So I like that word at least it can be molded over time for improvement, you know,
Yes.
because I don't know if, but I do know that Dr. Steinhaus is a good man. He ran a good district, and he ran some great help, assisted us at Zia Pueblo for many years. So I want to be that advocate for educators at the public education department. And I think I can as a school board member. So thank you, Billy, Gino,
Thank you.
all of you for being on tonight and listening to me.
We sure appreciate you, and I really appreciate everyone attending. Make sure that you vote and take 5 friends with you. Make sure you take
Yeah.
people to vote. And if you need any, if you have some time, but if you have some time and energy to help Gary or Jessica, please feel free to give them a call too. You're welcome to reach out to me, and I can put you in touch with them. So thank you all for coming so much. And we're going to actually post this recorded meeting to social media. I think I'm going to try and figure that part out. But we'll also share it on our website and whatnot so that y'all can watch it again later on. Okay. So thank you again for coming. Everybody have a wonderful night. Get some rest tonight. We'll see you all later. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Naya says goodbye too.